Good afternoon, everyone. So we are all set to start our presentation on data modernization best practices and lessons learned. And let me tell you, this is going to be a very exciting session today. We have lots of things lined up for you. And I'll quickly start with my introduction. My name is Kuldeep Chauhan. I'm one of the senior engineering architects in Data Migration Jumpstart Engineering Group, which is part of Azure Data. And our team's core charter is to unblock our enterprise customers across the globe who are having any migration scenarios when they are migrating from their on-prem homogeneous or heterogeneous systems to Azure data tier. And we provide that wide global experience all across the journey of their migration, and there are different parts of the programs, which we are going to talk eventually later. But with that, let me quickly go ahead and talk about the session objectives. And there are some key session objectives, which is like we want you to be aware about how the data modernization works, including SQL end of support. And you also understand the different engineering programs that we have from the wide globing perspective. And eventually, we would also like to share with you, from objective perspective, different customer success stories and what are the real learnings behind them. So with that, let's quickly talk about the key drivers for any enterprise migration scenarios. So from the driver's perspective, there are so many drivers, but what we want to make sure is that these are the key drivers which you understand. So for an example, like customers who are really willing to go and migrate, they have situation scenarios like scale. So for an example, if customers are having their workloads which are already running on-premise in their data centers, and they are up and max to their capacity, so they cannot go over and beyond until unless you're buying and purchasing new hardware. So that kind of demands for some kind of migration or transformation scenarios. And similarly, one of the another key drivers you can think about is like cost reduction, which is especially in terms of the hosting and operations cost, where customers really want nowadays that how actually we can optimize our TCO. And those are the areas where like the hosting and operations are like from on-prem, if they are moving to a hybrid cloud scenario or Azure directly, then they are really getting some good TCOs out. And there are other set of customers bucket which I would say really fall in the end of support scenario. So we have customers who have homogeneous workloads running on SQL Server, and they might still have some things or some workloads running on SQL Server 2008 and R2. So for those particular scenarios also, the migration and modernization becomes very important. And just a quick call out on that, in case if you have any customers who are running on 2008 and R2, there are migration paths both on Azure as well as on-prem. So that's a quick call out so that like you can think about migrating to either Azure or the on-prem version. With that, let's quickly look at, from any enterprise point of view, what are the common FUD factors? What we mean by FUD factors is the fear, uncertainty, and doubts when they are planning to do any modernization and migration. So here you can see things popping up. From a customer perspective, if we are migrating any enterprise solution, one of the fear that really comes in their mind is that what is the feature parity and compatibility. So if customers are running, let's say, their workloads and application on Oracle, then one of the key things they ask is that if I'm on Oracle, what would be the best migration path or the target architecture for me if we go to Azure?
Hey.
And we tell them
I'm fine. I'm sorry.
that
No.
so we tell them
I'll let you know if I feel anything. Do you have any number that I can call? Like from.
You know what? You just grab anyone.
can you please mute the other mics?
Anyone who's working here in a purple shirt.
No. When I go back home and if I feel any. No. From the if I go to hotel.
Can you please
If I feel
mute
any,
the other mics?
Is there any number I can call or just 911?
You would call 911 or
Yep.
you would just call the lobby desk and they could contact someone.
Sounds good.
Staying in the Hyatt?
No.
Are we good? Perfect. Thank you. So what I was talking about, the common FUD factors and feature parity and compatibility kind of comes on the top of the list. And we were talking about the Oracle to Azure data tier migration scenario. And especially in that case, if you really ask me, customer wants to know that what is the best target architecture for me. And in that case, we recommend them that if you are moving from Oracle, you better be going to PostgreSQL on Azure. The reason being that from a feature parity perspective and compatibility point of view, that is the most closest path for you. And once you migrate there, the developers' learning curve is going to be very small. That's one of the third factor. And the second one, if we talk about, is high availability and disaster recovery. So if the migration is happening from on-prem to Azure data tier, there are applications and systems which are business critical. And business critical systems running on, let's say, Oracle RAC or Exadata, or customers running SQL homogeneous active-active clusters. And when they plan to move that to Azure, one of the big questions comes that, can I get my high availability the way we want? And we have some very good success stories to share with you today on that. But yes, as a Azure Fabric, we have 4.9 high availability by default offered. And we really kind of custom tailor solutions for our customers to make sure that they achieve that type of a high availability once they go to Azure. Now, our team, as I said, like we are in the core of migrations, so we want to make sure that when a migration happens, then what are the key steps and migration areas where really customer has to go and spend time, be it the customer or whoever is the delivery vehicle for delivering that migration. It could be the partner, GSI, or the services. And based on our learnings, what you can see here is that there are very key typical steps, but out of them, there are two steps where actually customer spends most of the time. One is the remediation of your application, and another one is your functional testing. So what we want you to be kind of equipped with here in terms of the information is that if your customers are planning for migrations, or you are the customer who is willing to migrate from any homogeneous or heterogeneous data sources or workloads to Azure data tier, then you should better be knowing that what are the areas where actually you are going to focus most, and you are aware about these upfront. Now, out of all these steps, there are steps where actually we have our first-party tools available to you, which is like as part of the assessment, as part of your programmable objects migration, as part of your data migration, we have Microsoft first-party tools available, which are like SSMA, SQL Server Migration Assistant, Data Migration Assistant. We have, for the data migration purpose, we have Azure Data Migration Services, which kind of helps you to do that part of the migration. Plus, we have third-party tools also, because there could be a workload and scenario where you might be willing to migrate from, let's say, Oracle to MySQL or MariaDB. So we have our first-party solution available there to kind of help you. But if there are scenarios which are not supported, we have third-party solutions available which customers can go and leverage. Now with that, there are certain programs which across this migration life cycles from Microsoft engineering side are there to help enable you to kind of go ahead and have a seamless migration all across. And those engineering programs really takes care of your migration journey pretty much all across in all steps. So I'm quickly going to talk about one of the migration program, which is a white globing program offered by our engineering team. This program is called DM Jumpstart Engineering. And the core charter of our program is to make sure that we unblock our customers, especially the unique complex patterns of migration, which customers are in. And we go and provide our engineering architects directly to the customers to have that white glove experience, so that if they are blocked at any stage of the migration, they have full engineering support to go and kind of get unblocked. And there are situations where like you might be using the product. Let's say, for an example, you're moving from Oracle to PostgreSQL on Azure. And if there are any problems coming to our customer, we have a direct engineering connect where we go ahead and get our engineers on board to make sure that they are unblocked during the migration to the Postgres. From a program perspective, we have different types of offering for each customers, like assessment, proof of concept, and pilot. And in case if any of your customers want to kind of go and be part of the program, you please reach out to your local teams, and they are going to nominate your customers to this. Now, with that, I'm going to quickly take you to one of our key customer success stories, that is H&R Block. And I'll play a quick video here for you.
H&R Block requires a highly resilient infrastructure.
Due to the seasonal nature of the tax business, we might have 5 times of workload requirement on the last day of the tax season.
This presents a tremendous opportunity for us to adopt a more effective elastic model. So we started moving aggressively into Azure.
As part of our data modernization initiative, we are trying to simplify our data stack. SQL Managed Instance was providing us the most seamless migration path to Azure.
The first phase was just lift and shift. We're reconfiguring our environment to move from an IaaS to a PaaS model so that we can really take advantage of cost savings around infrastructure and things that are going to now be automated.
Native integration of Azure Databricks reduces the operational complexities and gives us dynamic Spark capabilities for our analytics workload.
Investing in Azure Data Services and data platforms has really set up an amazing foundation to use AI and machine learning to better serve our client.
We're trying to iterate even quicker by implementing DevOps processes. We have just started to implement CI/CD to deliver product functionality faster.
In 2019, we served almost 20 million tax returns running in Azure.
Migrating our platforms to Azure has really allowed us to deliver new products and services quicker.
It allows us to make our client experience better, which really at the end of the day is why H&R Block is here.
So guys, with that, let me invite Aditya Tadani, who is the VP of IT division in H&R Block, to go ahead and share their modernization success story. Aditya, over to you.
Hi, glad to be here. So you saw a bit about H&R Block. We are, of course, in tax preparation industry, and the company was founded in 1955, so we have been around through a lot of changes within the tax services industry. And as we kind of look at our business, wanted to give you kind of sense of how we operate and what our operations looks like. Block is really one of the only companies within the tax preparation services industry that actually gives choices to clients and how they get help, meaning they can get help online, they can get help in person, and that has significant implications for us from a technology perspective. So I'll share a bit about kind of before we get into the details of how we handle the data platform migration, a bit of the context of what we are driving from a technology perspective. So when you look at Block from a business operations opportunity perspective, really the two things I would want to call out is we have a fair bit of diversity in how we serve our clients. We have almost 8 million plus returns that are actually prepared by clients online, and we have another 12 million or so that actually come and work with one of the tax pros to get assisted services to prepare. And the way we serve those clients, of course, looks very different, but increasingly what we are finding is clients want to not just choose between an online experience or an assisted experience, but a combination of the two, and that's kind of where our opportunity space is as we look ahead. So from a technology operations perspective, we are, of course, an extremely seasonal business. We every year bring in seasonal tax pros. We hire over 70,000 tax pros every year and staff those across 10,000 different office locations within the US. So that means there's a lot of onboarding, ramp up, office setup that goes on, which is what we do kind of leading up to the season. But within the season context also, there is a lot of spikes in how the traffic goes. We have over 25% of our returns, annual return volume, all get filed in a matter of 2 weeks during the entire year, right? So over 25% of what we're doing actually happens in 2 weeks in the year. And that has two implications for us. One is, of course, elasticity, which makes us a great candidate for moving to the cloud. But the other aspect is when we have so much business concentrated in a very short period of time, actually, even within those weeks, there are hours that count the most. The resiliency during that period is extremely important. But how we handle resiliency, that is extremely critical and important for certain days and hours versus a lot of the time of the year, we don't want to necessarily have the investment that goes into maintaining that high level of resiliency and balancing that. So that's actually our tech operations opportunity. Beyond that, actually, if we look at our business itself, this migration to the cloud is part of a broader change that's going on at Block. From a digital transformation perspective, we are really changing to deliver much more omni-channel experiences to our client. And that means that our legacy platforms, the systems we built over the years are, a lot of those were either built to serve clients online or were built to serve clients in the office. And now we are seeing clients wanting to transition from one experience to the other seamlessly. And that means rethinking systems, rethinking how we manage our data platforms. So all of that is driving changes in our technology footprint and actually really provides a big reason for not just modernizing, but migrating to the cloud. And the other aspect is, as you kind of have been hearing throughout that last 2-3 days, we, like everyone else, we are actually working on building smarter services, more intelligent services that provide a much better personalized experience to the clients. So for simple examples, like when we provide tax tips and recommendations to a client, they are the ones that are most relevant to where the client is in their life and what's most relevant to them. So building those data-driven solutions also was a key driver for how we are rethinking our technology footprint, and that's something we are solving for, is as we are migrating to the cloud, we are also changing how those systems are designed and architected to accomplish that. Finally, I think just, as we kind of look at what we expect from any design or the architecture we build in Azure is, I mentioned resiliency is extremely critical. Elasticity and agility is. And the last part because of our business model and how sort of our traffic spikes for a brief period of time, historically we had to essentially build infrastructure that would be used for 4 hours in a year. We hosted that much infrastructure in our data center. And now we are able to actually follow the consumption patterns as opposed to building for 4 hours and having it sit idle for a big part of the year. And that's something that, as you look at kind of how we're designing, is some of these things kind of come back to it. With that, I'll actually pass on to Samir, and he'll talk a bit more about how we moved from where we were to where we are now.
Thank you, Aditya. Hello, everyone. My name is Samir Agrawal. I've been with Block for 12 plus years now. I've worked as DBA developer. Last 4 or 5 years, I've been working as an architect over there. And so I will just go a little back in that time, like even before we started doing our Azure migration, Azure adoption, almost like 2 years back before that time, we started looking at our data platforms and where we are going. Is it aligned with the future or not? So we made certain hard calls, I would say, which was not easy to implement. And the first one, if I have to go through the process, was like RDBMS standardization. What we found out, like because of like such an old company, 50 plus years, we got like so many of those flavors inside the company, which was creating its own silos, leading to all kind of issues. The people who are from the DBA background can imagine like patching issues, security issues, different kind of standards being built over the period of time, all those kind of work, which if you have like one platform, if possible, all those things gets reduced. And now you don't have to build like 5 set of standards. So as part of that, even before we started Azure, all of our key applications were running in SQL Server. So if I think outside SQL Server, it was like a very less footprint compared to that. And since we had made SQL Server so well, so we tried to start migrating our things to the RDB for the SQL Server. So, but as we kept on progressing, and the last 1.5 years, we are trying to go more into Azure. Now we have moved from SQL Server. Now we say like we have to go to the Azure SQL Server DB over there, because that's where the elasticity and scalability comes into picture. We don't have to spin up these things for like all 12 months where we need it. When we need it, we spun up and we scale it down. So that's a big one. Still going on. It was started like 2 years back. Might take another year or so, but the goal is to go towards SQL Server over there. And it's not about like just one thing, Oracle, Postgres, even for the other MPP appliances also, what we found out, the kind of workload or the data sets which we have, we are able to fit those things easily into SQL Server, and I will share more details around those things over here. ETL. So again, like for such a old company, even though we had set the standard in this case that Informatica is our default tool, but because of the demands and the team capacity sometimes, or many other factors, we have got fragmented so much into this space also that we got like, now we have Informatica, we have silos running inside the SSIS packages, we have cron jobs running with the shell scripts, we have our own autosys as a tool to stitch these things together, which creates its own problem now. So it's difficult to have data lineage, difficult to have data governance around these things. You do not know where the business rules are sitting. All those complexities start happening. What we saw when we started doing the Azure, like we have to do something to make it work. If we are trying to go do more governance around these things, we have to pick a tool which is going to solve all these things. And what we are finding, ADF looks very promising in this area. We have started utilizing these things. And working closely with the Microsoft also, when we are seeing the roadmaps around the data catalog coming out, looks like that might help us a lot in this area. As we are migrating things to Azure, we are trying to go more towards ADF. So that's another big thing over here. NoSQL is relatively new to Block and even to the world also. So it's not a lot of fragmentation happened in this area. We have only 2 of them. MongoDB and HBase are the primary ones right now. So the journey of migration becomes much easier in this case. So we are trying to target those things against to Cosmos DB. It gives us elasticity which we need for our environment and for our business. We have done some testing around these things, the big ones. Looks very promising to us. And we are heavily, aggressively moving into the Cosmos DB over there also. And these are like some of the areas I'm talking about just because of time sensitivity over here. But these are like some themes, and it's not just about these themes. They're like much more broader perspective around these things. We are doing way more than that, which I will just touch base after this slide. Machine learning services, as Aditya talked about, we are trying to make our personalization around the applications around those things. So again, we need scalability around these things as well. So what we are looking is like ACE as a solution over there. When we are hitting April 15th scenario, we really need to scale up these things. After 16th or 17th, it really need to scale down. So ACE using the Python codes and the machine learning modules running over there is giving us that flexibility. At a high level, I can say like these are certain themes we talked about in the last few minutes. But we are in parallel. There are teams who are exploring Databricks over there at Block. There are teams who are looking at the SQL DW over there, and many other things are happening in parallel around these things. And think about like the way, I will take an example of the SQL DW, the way we are trying to make it better and better from the cost perspective, because it's not a cheap thing. The way we are trying to go towards that one is like the moment 5 p.m. happens or 6 p.m. happens, go and run a runbook in the background, lower down the DWs over there. Moment 2 o'clock happens, just screen the DWs enough so that the ETL jobs which need to go and populate those things through the ADF can push data enough, and by the time it becomes 7 o'clock in the morning, we again increase the DW units over there so that people can go and do the job which they want to do in the daytime. So we are trying to leverage all these kind of flexibilities in the environment to cost optimize as well. So I will go deep into like a couple of use cases over here with you guys. These are like pretty interesting one. It took us like a year plus to do this kind of thing, and it's still maturing. We are still not done with these kind of things. So we had like a couple of appliances in the data center, and that's where like a year back or so, a little more than a year now, we started looking at those things like what do we do with these appliances? Because we cannot take them to Azure. We have to do something with the appliances over here. And plus, we were not set in the stone with the Azure also at the same time. We were still figuring out, it was in the process, all those things. We started looking at it, and Netezza was one of them, and many of you might be having this situation, like we know that Netezza was hitting end of life. So we have to do something. So two key things were there in the mind, like we have to get rid of the appliance, that's one factor, and how do we build a solution which might give us a path to go to cloud as well. So after talking to the DMJ group, the Jumpstart group over here, like Kuldeep and some other folks on his team, we started doing some POCs around like one of the heaviest big loads from like 2-3 segments which we had it. And what we found out, the kind of performance which we were looking for was exactly coming out of the SMP platform itself. And we all know the CCI indexes are like relatively new for SQL Server, like maybe 3-4 years old now. But it got maturity, it got matured up to the level that it was working out well for us, for our scenarios. So what we did, we took and we started with Netezza like to begin with, but when we started looking more at the broader level, what we found that there was another appliance sitting next to it, the AS400, and we made a bigger project out of it, and we took both of them together in one shot, and we migrated both of those things to the SQL Server. And it was very interesting learning, like the kind of thing we were thinking about is like, hey, is it going to work, not work? We are moving from MPP platform to SMP platform, a lot of unknowns. And when we are trying to figure out who has done it, we couldn't find many people also. So it was little, it gives a nervous feeling to you when you don't find, like, there are not many people who have done these things. But we kept on going with, with the learnings which we were having during this process, that it was never stopping, like it was always moving. Even though there were issues, we were working closely with the engineers in Microsoft, we were able to come out with the solutions, and ultimately after 8 months of journey, it worked actually for us. It has been a year plus. We have been running those platforms into either in the SMP platform kind of things, like CCI index is enabled, majority of the tables are having those things. And for the other part of it, where we found that there's a little bit of redesign opportunity available to us, we moved certain things to the ODS layer. And with a combination of those two things, we are able to make the entire platform work. And if you look at the hardware which we used, we just went for like normal Cisco blades with certain assumptions of the workload, what we learned as part of the POC learnings. It was like, if I have to pick the number, I think it was 56 core box with like a terabyte kind of RAM. And that's where we started for the Netezza equivalent over there, and same thing for the AS400. These are certain stats over there, like how big the environment was. And it was 2,000 plus ETL jobs, which is a combination of like Informatica, shell scripts running in the background, SSIS running for certain areas, all those kind of things. 10,000 tables, 20 terabytes of data got migrated. That's another interesting learning, like how did we move the 20 terabytes of data? Because if you have 10,000 tables, how do you make sure that there's a consistency when you move these things? So we found a tool called Attenuity with the help of the team over here, with the Microsoft folks. It was pretty easy actually to utilize that thing. Like, it is so UI driven, and it's giving you all the checks and balances in place that when you are migrating these tables, for 95% plus of the time, it was working, first of all. And plus, if for some reason something is not working, the data did not got migrated because of the column type issues or data type issues, it was giving us enough warning like something is wrong. So that made our migration easier from the data standpoint. So we were able to migrate 95% using that particular tool. For another area, we used SSIS. Like for certain things, Attenuity was not working for some XYZ reason, so we figured out SSIS can help us with those things. But there were certain odd scenarios in which both of them did not work. And usually what we found, like the sizes are beyond certain numbers, like if they are like 300 gig table or 400 gig tables, then nothing worked out. So we went to a very traditional route, like take these tables, figure out like how can you slice this data into 10 pieces, maybe make 10 text files, put them together into the SSIS package later and upload into the target system. So bunch of tricks we did to make it work. Code migration was another interesting thing. Even though Netezza is NG-SQL, it's pretty friendly with having the basic NSI-SQL things over there. But there are certain proprietary things in Netezza which we had to figure out, and there were certain functions. We have to put some tricks around those things to make it work. The key learnings which we had, as I said, like RAM. Don't underestimate these boxes. They are pretty huge. They have lots of horsepower inside these things. What we saw, like, hey, we have the max table of 350 gigs. Like, how can the system go beyond 1 terabyte? Like, what would it take to make it go beyond 1 terabyte? Let's put 1 terabyte. But what we found out just before the launch, that when everything was coming together, like at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, things were slowing down. And what we found out, like, there are two ways. We can go and optimize these codes because many of these codes were like lift and shift kind of model were there because we had certain capacity of time to solve these things. Or we put more RAM for now and not make everybody nervous because the code change is going to delay the whole process. What we found out, like, shove in more 0.5 terabyte and see how it goes. And after that, we never had to look back. It's still working. We didn't have to refactor those codes because of those performance reasons. It's just working over there. ETL tool might give you a surprise because if you think about the way these tie-ups happen between the MPP appliance with the Informatica or any other XYZ tool from the ETL standpoint, they are like very tightly integrated. What we found as surprising, like, we had some challenges, but always there was some workaround. So again, we reached out to the Microsoft folks over here, and that was really helpful actually in these kind of situations. There are certain things which was very interesting we found out as we were migrating. The good part is I was not knowing enough, so I kept on taking chances over there. When you have like AS400 box and you have Netezza box, and and data need to be moving from the AS400 to the Netezza box, and the way it was moving was pretty interesting. Like, whenever this process was developed, the way it was developed was like, you take the data from AS400, you don't have any connector, so you have SAS sitting over there, you put data into the SAS, and from SAS put it back to the Netezza. And think about, and it was all handwritten code, thousands and thousands of lines of code. When we looked at the process, it was like, it doesn't make sense. We went for the SSIS route over there and made it metadata-driven, entire thing. And within 4 days or 5 days, we developed the entire process. So that was like a pretty big thing, and it's still paying off, those kind of things. Now we can move data from one box to the next one. Wins, there's no vendor appliance lock-in anymore. It's highly cost-effective between the two solutions. High availability is much easier now because you don't have to buy $1 million boxes to make these things work from the HA perspective. And it really worked actually for the entire year. So we have crossed 1 year. We have seen all the workloads around these things. These are still running on-prem. What we did, we took one of the boxes, we moved to the Azure already. One of the ODS box we classified as ODS is already running in Azure right now in the MI. The other one, we are still figuring out, working with, again, like because of the load patterns and all those things, we are still not sure what the target path would be. Maybe DW, maybe MI over there, or maybe hyperscale coming on the MI. We do not know. We are going to figure out that thing. This is another use case, which is for the, we saw in the video, like we serve 20 million clients. So this was about the DIY application. If you have done your taxes from HNR Block, and you go to the website, you start doing the taxes. So that's a DIY module over there. And if you are going to the offices, you're booking your appointments. So those two applications are one of the biggest applications we have for Block, and they both were running on the SQL Server. What we did, because we had things in place last summer, and we got only 4 months, we didn't have time to rediscover or move to the PaaS solutions at that point of time. So we went to the IS route for that situation. But as part of the journey, we learned a lot, actually. We learned a lot about network. Our engineers learned a lot about those things, security setups, how the network works over there, how the storage system need to be designed. That's the most critical thing. Storage is, because I would say we were spoiled to some extent because we got the world-class EMC devices sitting over there. Nothing has to be worried about. It just works. But the moment we went to Azure, you have to redesign your storage systems a lot, actually. You have to learn a lot about your storage systems. So that was a key learning over there. And we had some challenges with the load balancer kind of capacity we had built over there because they were running with like 2 instances running in Azure. We had the DR situation sitting in our own data centers because we were a little nervous it's going to work out or not. So we had built our DR in our own data centers. So it was a pretty complex set of a SQL. What we learned over there as part of the journey is like, and as Aditya talked about, like, we needed resiliency around these things. So if you try to make it too complex, that process also becomes very complex. So what we are in the process of it right now is we are trying to move these systems to the PaaS solutions, actually. The results are very promising right now. Performance and the numbers which we have seen so far looks like it's going to work for us. Teams are actively working on for the next tax season to be moving into this segment, actually. The main reason we picked up is because of the zone awareness and the region replication processes which we get by default over there. That was one of the key factors we had in mind when we picked up Azure SQL. with few changes in the application, it really worked out. And the key things which we saw is like cross-DB queries. Time zone is one of the important things which you have to have a GMT kind of situation over here in the SQL paths, and our applications were running with CST in mind. So those were the kind of things which we had. It was not a deal breaker, basically. So we are on that path, so this is where we are. Key takeaways from our side, which I would say is like, when we need the elasticity, when we need the scalability around those things, that's what we were trying to go after, and that's what we achieved actually as part of the Azure migration processes. And if you think about the resiliency, it's not just from the hardware side of it or from the design side of it. Partnership also plays a lot actually, and that's what whenever we need to, we have a very close relationship with the Microsoft folks who really helps in solving those kind of problems when we need to. Thank you. I hand over to Raja.
Thank you so much. That's a very fascinating modernization and migration journey that H&R Block took. And as you might have seen, they used a combination of first-party tools, third-party tools, and some kind of ad hoc scripts to migrate with the help of the white glove experience that our engineering team provided to it. So that's how Microsoft really helped for any of the complex migrations. Don't think that you're blocked on migrations. We are there to help you out. As a matter of fact, here I want to take a brief moment to really showcase what specific Microsoft first-party tools and services that are available to make your migrations seamless from the on-premises databases to Azure. And as you see on this slide, at first I'm going to talk about the specific sources and specific targets that we support as part of our tools journey. As you see here, we support starting from SQL Server 2005 all the way up to 2017 that you can really migrate to Azure SQL Database, single database, elastic pools, managed instance, or SQL servers which are running on the VMs. And the same way we also support migrating from the heterogeneous sources like Oracle, Sybase, DB2 to the respective Azure targets. We also have support for open source databases, MySQL, PostgreSQL, to have a lift and shift migration experience to Azure database for Postgres and MySQL database. We also support NoSQL databases as well. I know we talked about the Cosmos DB. From MongoDB to Cosmos DB we support, right? So those are the specific tools and the sources and targets that we support. And when you really think about the Microsoft first-party tools, two major phases in the migration is assessment and migration. Assessment is very key thing. You really want to assess, discover your environment, find out the app dependencies, prepare an inventory, which applications are ready to migrate, which applications are the low-hanging fruits that I can migrate, what would be my target platform migrating to Azure, how much TCO it's going to be costing, right? How much effort it is involved. You really need to understand all those aspects before you really take over your production migration. So the tools that you could use is the Data Migration Assistant tool, which really help you to assess your on-premises SQL servers, find out what are the migration blockers, what are the breaking changes that you really need to address to make your migration successful, whether my workload is good fit for SQL DB, single database, managed instance, or SQL servers which are running on the VM, so that I can be able to migrate with less effort, and at the same time I can maximize my cost savings. How do you know all that stuff? If you look at your entire data estate like H&R Block, thousands of SQL servers out there, you really want to find out that kind of analysis using our tools and services. We have tools and services that can scale to that extent. And when it comes to the migrations, we have a service called Azure Database Migration Service, a fully managed service on the Azure. You don't have to pay anything for it. And then it really helps you to migrate with minimal downtime. We call that as a near zero downtime migration experience. I'm not going to go deep into these tools. Tomorrow I have a deep dive session at 1:30. I think it is in 219 room. So I hope I see you guys there so that I can really showcase the end-to-end migration experience starting from applications to the databases using those tools and services. But today, I want to share another customer experience, very recent customer experience that I got. This customer fully used our first-party tools and services to do the migrations. Capita, a UK-based customer who manages all the library systems across the entire UK country. So they manage 8,000 libraries across the universities, across the schools, across the library systems in the UK country, right? They approached us that they want to really migrate their entire data estate because their data center lease was expiring, and they don't want to extend that data lease. and they only have 6 months' time. You're talking about 8,000 databases and as well as the massive application which really manages all these 8,000 databases. Luckily, because they are a SaaS customer, each client represents a single database. So there is no connection between these databases to begin with, right? So what we did to them is that they only have a downtime during the weekends. So they identified certain set of customers that who can really take a downtime in the weekend. Obviously, in the weekend, the libraries will be closed, right? At least one day. So they batch together 400 customers on every week. So every week they used to migrate 400 databases. That means 400 clients almost. And then they took around 6 months to migrate the entire estate to the Azure Elastic Pools. And also the reason that they choose an Elastic Pools is the Azure SQL Database Elastic Pools is that each of these libraries have a different types of peak loads, so that the Elastic Pools really can scale elastically to really help those customers who have the peak loads versus other customers can slow down a little bit, right? That's the reason they have chosen Elastic Pools. It really worked great for them. So with the first party tools that we got, they completely automated their migration, including creation of the databases and deploying the schema of the database, and then migrating those databases with minimal downtime. Everything is automated. What they used to do is every Friday before they leave home, they used to kick off this particular migration project within one single command, and by the time that they come back on Sunday or before they release the applications for the business, the migrations were done. If there are any migrations failed for the migrations, then it used to notify them that why it is failed, so that at least they would roll back that particular migration to the specific customer, so that the customer is not impacted, and they used to fix those issues and then schedule it later. That way, they were able to migrate all 6,000 databases or 10,000 databases actually in 6 months of period. And there is a quote. Unfortunately, that quote did not make. This is a public case study. You can read on the blogs. They clearly said, how many people you think that involved in this migration in the customer? Can anybody guess? How many people from the customer side involved in this migration? Just one. There is a quote actually. Just one using this complete automation. So Microsoft is there to help to unblock these migrations. That's what. And then, given that the different ways that we can really help you is that we have multiple ways that we help customers. We work with GSA partners, specialty partners, and we help them to empower them that they can really enable those migrations to you. We have first-party tools like I mentioned, and which I'm going to do a deep dive tomorrow that help. We also have programs like Data Jumpstart, Kuldeep just talked about it. We also have Azure Migrate program. So you can really go and then publicly nominate for the Azure Migrate program. We look at your entire data estate, and then we will help you in multiple phases. We also have different offers that we can really help you to accelerate your migrations and modernizations, right? That could include, looking at your existing environment and then come up with the financial plan, like what it would really cost to move this stuff to the Azure, whether it is a lift and shift migration, whether it could be a refactor migration, or requires a complete re-architect. We will let you know based on the analysis that we do. And we also do a complete scan across your data estate and then provide you the specific recommendations how you want to go about your migrations. And at the same time, we also help you to do the POC migrations to make sure that you can empower to do your own migrations. And we help you to do the migrations automation and all the stuff. So there are multiple ways that we really help customers to migrate. So remember AMP program, Azure Migrate program, AKA/AMP, where you can go and then nominate yourself if you are really planning any complex migrations. We are more than happy to help in that area. And then again, so there are different sessions. I know we are really coming close to the end of the conference, but the deep dive session that I am doing is somewhere sitting there that I'm doing at 1:30 tomorrow. So hope that I can see you there so that I can really go deep dive with the tools and services. With that, I quickly want to, there are some resources that once you get the slide deck, you can really use these resources to really contact us or learn more about the migrations. And then finally, please submit your evaluations. We really take it very seriously to not only to improve our products, but also to improve our presentation content as well, to really bring some value to you. Thank you so much for your time, and we are here for any questions. I don't know how much time we left for, like 5 seconds we left for questions. But we are more than happy to stay here for a few minutes to take any of your questions. Thanks for your time.